We got a great guest in studio. We're going to jump right into a conversation with him because he's got to head off to Olympia here shortly. Mason County Auditor Paddy McGuire. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Nice to see you guys.
Morning. Likewise.
Got you in here. A couple different issues. It was Auditor's Day yesterday at the state capitol. So from all the different counties across, they all showed up. And what happens on those kind of things?
So it's a chance for us to meet with our legislators. There are about 30 of 39 auditors in Olympia. It's a chance for us to go around and talk to our legislators. We have two primary things that we are working on. One is getting the state to pay its fair share of elections. Election costs get divvied up among who put things on the ballot. 4 things, as an example, to oversimplify it, there are 4 things on the ballot, 2 from the county, 1 from a school district, 1 from a fire district. The county would pay half, the school district would pay a quarter, and the fire district would pay a quarter. That works great. Everybody pays their fair share except the state of Washington, which doesn't pay in even-numbered years and makes the county pay for that. So we are trying to say, pay your fair share. They set the rules, so they get to stiff us, but we're making the argument that it's not fair.
Sure.
And if the Port of Grapeview can pay for an election, it seems like the state of Washington should be able to pay for an election.
What are the costs on that, and where do those costs incur? The printing of the pamphlets that come out, or even just the printing of the ballots?
It's everything. I mean, it's printing, it's mailing, it's staff to process. We bring in temporary staff to help us handle the volume. It's everything.
Sure. We are seeing, too, then you're going to be there today, an election security bill is put up from Secretary of State Wyman. What's in that, and what are your thoughts on that?
So it does a number of things. The one piece that I am testifying on is that her bill seeks to take away the ability of military and overseas voters to return a ballot by email. We are one of 5 states in the country that lets military and overseas voters vote electronically, return their ballot electronically, a marked ballot electronically. We are against repealing that. I'm speaking on behalf of all the auditors on this point. Prior to becoming auditor, I worked for the Department of Defense for the Federal Voting Assistance Program and got to talk to soldiers and sailors and service people who some of whom are in situations where the only way they can vote is by email, electronically. If you're in a submarine under the polar ice cap for 90 days,
it's hard to find a ballot box.
They're not picking up the mail. We met in 2012. I took a group of secretaries of state to the Mideast to look at election preparedness before that presidential election. We met with a group of Marines that had just come back from a forward operating base on the border between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, trying to keep the Yemenis and the Saudis from shooting each other, which they're doing now. But and they were at this forward operating base. There were 100 Marines. Once a week, a helicopter came out and threw supplies out the side. It would land if the wind wasn't blowing, but as they said, the wind always blows.
Yeah.
And so they got mail once a week, but they would often go 2 months, 3 months before mail came out. And they said, we want to have a role in picking our commander-in-chief, the person who sent us here, and the only way we can do that is electronically.
What's the number of those types of voters either in Mason County or across the state?
We will have, in the presidential election, about 200 vote. We have about 200 voters that get ballots electronically. Some of them return them by mail, some return electronically. It varies year to year. Out of 40,000 voters, I mean, it's not none. In Kitsap County, with all the Navy bases up there, they think they're going to have about 4,000 emailed ballots back in the presidential election. So it is certainly more than zero, and there is some risk involved, but I think that's an acceptable risk.
The other one that's kind of similar to this, and if I remember correctly, Secretary of State Wyman is also against this. We've been watching that hotly contested King County, whatever that race was, where it was like less than 1% voter turnout last year, so they're doing it app based. They're trying it with an app base, and I think kind of the same concerns that she had with that one. Where are you on that?
So, as a matter of philosophy, I think we have to move technology forward. I mean, young people do everything electronically. My daughter lives in Houston and recently bought a condo, and there was not a piece of paper involved. She didn't sign her name once.
Wow.
The world is changing, and I understand the legitimate concerns about electronics being involved in elections, and paper will remain the gold standard, but we've got to figure this out. And just saying no forever is not a solution if we want to get young people to participate.
On that vote, or even with these email ballots, if you send your vote in electronically and for some reason you wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh my gosh, I think something happened, is there a way to get a paper receipt of that vote either by email or over the app?
When we receive an emailed ballot from a voter, we send a reply and say, got it, thanks.
Okay.
We don't say, we got it, we got your votes for X, Y, and Z, because we protect the voter's privacy and we don't look at their ballot and their name at the same time.
Even with paper ballots, can you go back and look at that again? I mean, if you felt for some reason you had some inkling or there was reports that something hinky happened, even today, if it were just paper ballots, can you go back and see the record of what you voted on?
No.
Somewhere?
No, because we separate. When we process ballots, we check your name, make sure that you're qualified to vote, and then we separate your name from your ballot. And it is truly a secret ballot. So it is impossible to know who you voted for, and that's an important piece of the way we vote, and important to protect.
Well, we talk about the future, and I'm in agreement that the future is perhaps moving that way. We can't help but look back what happened on Monday in Iowa, where they tried to change the caucus process a little bit by adding some technology, some apps there, and they're still not at a full consensus on what happened there the other night. That's not what we do here in Washington, but do those types of events make you pause a little when it comes to the electronics of this thing, or no?
Sure, of course. But I would say, one is, this is why you have professionals run elections.
Yeah.
The Iowa Democratic Party runs a pseudo-election every 4 years. I run 4 or 5 a year. Practice. If you played golf once every 4 years, you probably wouldn't be very good at it.
Sure.
And at least for this week, that was the most important thing. The eyes of the world, and you have 30 guys on a panel in CNN waiting for results, and they're not there, and so it's panic and hysteria, and I think looking ahead to the presidential election, we expect record turnout, and I think people are going to have to be patient, including the news media. It is really important that we get it right, and you don't do that instantaneously. We allow ballots to come in, postmarks count here, and so a postmark from the other side of the world, they have almost 20 days for that ballot to get back to us, and that's important. But I don't know what's on that ballot until it gets to me.
Right.
And we count every single one. And so people are going to have to, particularly the news media, is going to have to take a deep breath and not expect that at 8:02 p.m. we're going to know everything, because we're not.
8:15.
Real quick question here for you. I know the names are separated from the how someone voted, but how does it come up when you see stories about politicians, like they'll try to nail someone on, well, you're so up on voting rights and you haven't voted since 1974 or something. Is that public record? Like, can I find out if my next door neighbor hasn't voted in 50 years, or like the relevance of that, or
Whether
how do you find that out?
whether you voted is public record. How you voted isn't.
Okay. And how does
So-
that, is it like just a public information then? Like how would somebody even go about,
Yes,
is it a database where you say, did Jeff Slakey vote in the last election or something? And
So during an election cycle with vote by mail, we offer to political parties candidates lists of who has voted and essentially and who hasn't. And so on any given day, you can come to me and find out whether your neighbor has voted or not, and you can
interesting.
go knock on the door and say, I noticed you didn't vote.
That's creepy.
And you still have 3 days to do it. And so for political campaigns, they love that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Because then they can target. They don't have to spend money to send ads.
If you voted on the first day, they're not going to spend time calling you. But if Spencer didn't vote,
interesting. That's
it's
interesting.
worthwhile to call him, but not you.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought of it.
So if you want the phone calls to stop, vote on the first day.
Vote early. What is the Washington primary again that's coming up this year? I know there is a current election happening, and it's for the school levies, and that is on the 11th. But moving forward, we'll have our own state primary for the presidential. And what's that look like?
March 10th is the presidential primary. Military and overseas ballots are already out.
Okay.
We will mail those out to everybody else 18 days in advance. This election is going to be different in that people are going to have to declare a party, which will also be public record, for the record. So to vote in either the Democratic or Republican primary, you're going to have to sign on the outside, check a box on the outside of the envelope, either a blue box or a red box, and pledge an oath to one party or the other. And then we will keep the Democratic ballots together and the Republican ballots together, because if you check the Democratic box, you can't vote on the Republican side, and vice versa. So it's a...
How does that work for a described independent then?
You have to make a choice. I mean, these are party primaries. Just for the record, I didn't make these rules. The legislature, working with the two political parties, made these rules. I hate this. But I do what the legislature tells me to do, and this is how they have described the election. So if people want to participate in either the Democratic or Republican presidential primary, just this election, no other election, once every 4 years, you're going to have to pick a box. If you don't pick a box, we're not going to count your ballot.
Wow. Okay. And so you'll see those before too long. Man, we're getting up on it. Returns so far on the school levies across the county, how are they looking?
Pretty steady. I mean, pretty typical for a February special.
Sure.
This is almost countywide for us. Hood Canal School District doesn't have a levy, but everywhere else does, and so it's a relatively big election and complicated for us in that we're going to have two live elections. We have two live elections at the same time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't normally happen, but they shoehorned the presidential primary in between the February and April specials.
And that's been pushed up, right? I mean, it hasn't always been the March 10th, right? It was...
No, well, in the past, I think 4
was
years
late.
ago, I think it was in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, I told you I'd get you out of here by 7:20. It's 7:18.
I should be able to find a place to park in Olympia.
Good
Thank
luck to you on that. It is 7:18. Paddy McGuire, Mason County Auditor. You can always search for him on the auditor's website, co.mason.wa.us, and just look for
we're on Facebook too now.
Ah, man, welcome to the 21st century. Very cool. Paddy McGuire, good to see you, buddy.